This is Playbook for Progressives, Part 2, page 65 to 144. I'm hoping that my presentation today will help you go through the material in the book and use my notes and this PowerPoint to highlight the aspects of the book that help us understand about organizing. You're going to be looking at this material and then responding to the discussion board question as to how the material in this book helps you think about organizing the fair. All right, so we're finishing the roles of the organizer that I started in the first section of the book. Now we're on role 11, the comrade and the confidant. So in the PowerPoint, I'm talking about how this section emphasizes the importance of building trust and communication beyond the practical actions of a political campaign or an event, organizing an event. And Mann talks about knowing who your friends are, working together to solve problems, digging under the surface to build support systems, and in his case, fight conservative anti-worker politics when he was working in a workplace environment or in the community, fighting for workers' rights. Also important is encouraging your friends to let you know when you make mistakes. This will be a theme that comes up in several of these aspects of organizing. He points out that after all is said and done, an organization rises or falls on the quality of the relationships at its core. Comradely relations built in the course of struggle strengthens the work and ensures the stability of an organization. And he gives some examples of this. He talks about working in General Motors as lead organizer and collaborating with women members who were working on political campaigns with the union, but also were pointing out in their own lives that they were dealing with domestic violence and that they wanted help in surveying the other women members. As a result of the work that they did on domestic violence, the union actually started giving a donation to Haven House, which is a shelter for battered women. Other examples are given in the chapter regarding dealing with issues regarding speaking Spanish and expanding people's understanding of why folks would like meetings translated and having translators and headsets available at meetings, fighting nationalistic kinds of campaigns. In Mann's case, General Motors was trying to create a anti-Japanese campaign. It was an anti-Toyota campaign that asked people to do more work and in order to defeat the Japanese, defeat Toyota. So they had a company mascot, Bebby, and for better efforts beats imports, encouraging the workers to work harder to save their own jobs. And Mann and others organized the workers to decide which side they were on, and fighting the company or fighting the Japanese. Because even Japanese workers like Mark Masaoka, who Mann worked with, were saying that what happened was that this anti-Toyota campaign bled into kind of an ethnocentric anti-Japanese attitude among the workers, and that's what they were trying to defeat. So here the comrade and the confidant is really about building trust, understanding what people's needs are, not only in terms of the actual campaign of building for a contract vote or, in our case, an event, but really helping people understand what people need to build solidarity. So he has some other examples that I talk about in the notes. All right, so moving on, I'm going to just highlight some of the ideas about what he means by the cadre, Rule 12. He talks about the differentiation between an activist who's experienced and passionate about a cause and someone who has been trained by mentors within an organization. Cadre are those who have the discipline of being committed to carry out organizational tasks regardless of personal interests. Another point is that cadre are not necessarily college educated. It isn't about getting a degree. It's about having experience in the field and working with others who have the discipline to make decisions together. And this is really interesting because, Mann is talking about what it means to have organizational discipline. And it's something that we're not always that concerned about. We often think about how we want to express ourselves as individuals. And he discusses that for cadre, there's 3 elements of the role: being willing to do whatever the organization asks. And that's based on the idea that you really agree with the organization and don't think they would ask anything of you that isn't important. And then being able to volunteer, offer time to the job. And then being able to build a base and evolving a project, campaign, or organization. So really working to help people get organized and grow the organization. He gives examples of the working in the South and the civil rights, as well as national liberation struggles in South Africa. So in the South, people dedicated their lives to fighting the Klan, and in South Africa, the white apartheid government. And we could look at the history of the labor struggles, the women's movement, American Indian movement, and see other situations where there were organizations designed to devise campaigns and people who were not only experienced and passionate, but were mentored to develop skills of discipline, he argues, are really important in making a success of the organization. So take a look at that material. Again, he mentions that organizers, the cadre, put actions together that draw people in and help them become activists. I really like this quote on page 74. When most people first become politically involved, they begin as activists. The activist attends meetings, goes to marches, writes letters, and after the organization develops confidence in her, might be encouraged to speak at an event. But she's still an activist, a good one, but not yet an organizer. The activist herself cannot come into being without an organization run by organizers who've organized every event and action she participates in. When a group is fighting to win and is carrying out its work with a plan and conscious character to advance a long-term strategy, the most dedicated organizers, the cadre, are essential. So take a look at this. This is, interesting to see what he's really implying. My final note in this section, finishing up the roles here, is that Mann is implying that there's an important long-term structural dimension to movement building and building organizations. Not everyone in progressive politics agrees with him. For example, the Occupy movement developed a critique of the kind of structure that privileges leaders and decision-making structures unless they are built on consensus. The question of how to grow a movement and how to develop organizers and cadres is worth reading and thinking about more. So this is something for you to consider. We're creating a fair. It's, a more short-term campaign within a longer-term social justice idea of, bringing our students and the organizations fighting for justice, social justice, together. And our fair is just one event in creating that, making that happen. Other parts of that are building departments like the Labor Studies program, and supporting other departments that are fighting against racism and expanding students' desire for quality, affordable education. All right, I'm moving on to part 2. And I'm going to stop here and make this a separate presentation, a separate lecture, so it'll be easier for you to upload.